Hi, I'm Valerie Engelhart, and in this video I am going to paint a barn owl on top of a creative watercolor wash. Now, this wash is something that I recorded for like an Instagram live or something, showing people how to loosen up and break free by just covering the paper with color. And the goal, at least for me, is twofold. One is it eliminates the fear of white paper, and it also gives me marks to measure by because I don't paint with a sketch. So here I'm working on the owl's eyes, and I'm just painting them in. I used my finger to sort of measure the space between the eyes, and because it's a barn owl, they have that where their beak is a little more pronounced, that part on their face that's right above the beak, and so I'm making that little V shape down towards the beak and blending out my paint to diffuse it and make it much softer for the face feathers. The color that was used on the background and is being used right now is by Rockwell Canada, called Magic Wizard. It's a very warm brown with, as you can see, strong yellow undertones, but sometimes you can get little subtle hints of pink, and I like the transition. I've dried my brush and I'm now lifting a highlight from the eye just to give it a more rounded, glassy look. This paper is a cold press. It's a fairly inexpensive block of paper. I think Academy Watercolor. I don't see it on my desk right now. It's around here somewhere. But right now I am hinting at that beak. So I'm painting it in very lightly because if I do something wrong, I could bleed it away. But I'm happy with the placement, so I'm going in with darker color. I've left a little space in the middle because that's where I want the highlight to be. And I'm softening the bottom of the beak so it kind of disappears into the face feathers. Now, even though the owl's face is white, or whatever the lightest value is in that area, I am going in with some shadow because it's not completely flat. There is movement and subtle depth in the face of this owl. And now I'm giving the barn owl that classic heart-shaped frame that goes around its face with those tiny little ruffled feathers. And for that, I'm using a darker value. I don't remember exactly which color this was, but I could use a dark blue or purple and it would make sense as long as I get the shape and value right. Hi, Valerie here. I just wanted to pop in real quick and ask, do you want to paint with bold, vibrant watercolor? Well, I teach you how to paint this beautiful, dare I say, elegant elephant using bright tube paints and lovely texture effects. Just go down to the link below, and it doesn't cost any money. Sign up and you get a free watercolor lesson along with the line art so you can follow along. Okay, back to the video. Welcome back. So now I'm just finishing up the little ruffly feathers around its face, and as you can see, I didn't outline the entire face. When I paint, I like lost and found edges and leaving little bits to the imagination, because a lot of people know what a barn owl looks like, and I have put in the other information elsewhere on the face. The viewer can sort of fill it in. Now I'm using that same lifting technique I used on the eyes, and I'm using it on the beak. I'm thinking it's a little too monotone right now, so I'm going in with just some Daniel Smith lavender to cool down some of those white feathers and add some shadows that aren't too dark. In this case, instead of focusing necessarily on value, I'm focusing on temperature to create form. And I like my painting soft, so I'm usually softening and bleeding things away. All right, so a barn owl has a white face. That's going to be the lightest part, but the area surrounding the rest of the head is darker. So now I'm going in and, well, putting in the rest of the owl. And owls are so cool because they can turn their heads 270 degrees. So in this particular case, this owl is actually looking backwards. So I am painting that dark triangle is kind of the space in between the wings, and right now I am using a dry brush effect to hint at the feathers of the wings. Deepening and darkening my values now. I just go in and try to just bring more form by adding in darker colors to make the lighter colors pop. Now on a barn owl, as with many owls, there are kind of little stripe bits on their wings, and a barn owl also has like little dots on the top of its head. So I've gone in, put in a few of those like barb-like feathers on the wings, and have put the dots on the top of the head, and I'm adding more color around like that little head ruff, making deeper shadows around the beak, focusing on the eyes. I want the greatest amount of contrast around areas I want to draw attention to. And barn owls have very distinct faces, and that's where I want the focus to be. The title of this painting is Nocturnal Gaze, so it makes sense that the eyes are really going to be the focus, and in extension to that, the face of the owl. And watercolor is a lot about layering. So I'll go and I'll work on a section, and then I'll go back and paint somewhere else, then come back to the previous section. I'm almost dancing and jumping around the painting, because if an area is too wet, I can't do too much. And if anything, if I start working in an area that's too wet, I could create quote-unquote mud, or make the piece look overworked, make it look like I didn't know what I was doing. So if you're in that spot where you are indeed not sure where you're going with it, or everything's just too wet, it's okay. Step away for a bit, let the painting dry, and then reassess. But sometimes if you kind of know your roadmap and how you want things to be painted, you can time where you paint so that you can go back to an area. So I can like work on the face and then go work on the feathers while the face dries. And then hopefully when I'm done with the feathers, the face will be dry. And that way I'm being effective with my time, because I don't know about you, I don't have as much time to paint as I wish I did. And so I gotta take advantage anywhere that I've got it. Oh, this poor little owl is starting to look so cross-eyed. Don't worry, I will get that fixed. So at this point, I decide to paint negatively, and that means instead of painting the owl itself, I'm painting around the owl, and only in that one spot, because I love lost and found edges. So I just do a soft line to the right side of its head to create the illusion of its body. And I know right now its eyes are looking so funny. Don't worry, it does come together in the end. And let's go ahead and add on that tip as well. Sometimes paintings go through an ugly phase and you're like, oh, how am I going to get past this? How am I going to fix it? Don't judge the painting until it's done. There's usually some way to come back from it. So at this point, I've grabbed some white gouache, because on the owl's wings are little white dots. And so I'm going through and just putting little white lines on the marks on the wings. Since I paint without sketching first, I really can't plan for this sort of stuff in advance. Some watercolor artists will use masking fluid, or those who are really ambitious will manage to paint around the white spots. But I don't paint like that, so I'll pull out some gouache. Just use it sparingly. You don't want to overwhelm the painting with the gouache. It's sort of there just to add little bits of shimmer and highlight. And since I want to call attention around the face, I am adding little lines around that heart shape face frame. And there, just adding a little bit of highlight on the eye has already made it look much better. And kind of a little wet line, because I want that eye to look nice and, well, wet. It's an eye. Now, because this owl does have the white face, I really want to go in and add some white, really bring some of those face feathers forward a bit. And I do that with the white gouache. And in this case, I think that's just a size 2 rigger brush, because I did want to keep the strokes kind of loose and suggestive. And that particular rigger brush is, and this one is a size 4 round, but both of those brushes that I have used are synthetic brushes with bristles that don't hold too much water. And that's what I want with the gouache for 2 reasons. I want kind of that dry brush effect, because I like the organic nature, that that has, and I don't want the gouache spreading everywhere or pooling, so brushes that hold a lot of water are a detriment for this technique I'm doing. I know I just went on a spiel about don't use too much gouache, but I really think that, as an artist, do what the painting tells you it needs. Do what you want to do, not just what someone tells you to do. I'm just here to give you tips and hopefully inspire you. But paint however you want to paint. You want to go paint a barn owl and you want it all in gouache? Well then, congratulations, you have a gouache painting of an owl. You want to mix watercolor and gouache? A lot of people do it, and it's beautiful. You will not get watercolor purist judgmentiness from me. All right, adding a couple lines to the back of the owl's head to really bring it forward. And isn't that amazing how just adding a dark color really pops the other area forward? And I don't want to outline the entirety of the owl's head, just a couple of lines, and it's already given it form. Now, on those white marks on the feathers, there's also really dark marks, so I'm going through on all of those lines and adding a tiny dot of dark paint. And then a little swoosh, deepening that little bit between the wings. And it's looking a little hard, so I'm going to soften it. So those feathers are so soft. And here's the finished painting. Let me know what you think down in the comments, or if there's anything that you want to see me paint, let me know. I love getting suggestions. If you liked this video, press that like button so I know to make more like it. And if you want to see more and not miss a thing, press subscribe because I post videos every Monday and Thursday. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you later. Bye.